The statute that existed for data privacy legislation in 2018 is not the same statute legislation that exists in 2026. Hello and welcome back to Privacy Professional Training. My name is Fumi Owolabi. The purpose of my channel is to discuss different ways in which individuals taking privacy certifications can pass their tests on the first try. In today's video, I wanted to talk a bit about privacy roles. In many of the different certifications that you might encounter, you're going to see reference to the different roles within the privacy profession. If you've ever taken a look at my Instagram, you've seen that I've discussed how you don't need to be a lawyer to be a privacy professional, but today's video is specifically aimed at those who are considering becoming privacy professionals and are intent on fulfilling the role of a privacy attorney. I feel competent to discuss this because my function within the program is as a privacy lawyer. Now, I wanted to relate it back to the taking of certifications and how different themes that you've encountered in your review of the privacy materials for any one privacy certification tie back to the role of a privacy attorney. So without further ado, my plan is to talk through the data lifecycle generally. And when you study for the privacy certifications, you're going to come across recurring in multiple privacy certifications, the term known as the data lifecycle, which essentially reviews collection, usage, deletion. In general, it will cover the full data lifecycle from the collection of the data till its deletion. And throughout, I'm going to be referencing different privacy certifications and how themes within those privacy certifications have assisted me in the work that I do as a privacy attorney. So I'll talk about what I do now on a general basis, and then we can go into those themes that you're going to see throughout the privacy certifications that you may be considering doing. And if you're also considering becoming a privacy attorney yourself, or you currently work as a privacy attorney, this might be valuable for you to understand other components of our role as lawyers and what you might see in different roles with different organizations. So the primary duty, well, I would say it's probably threefold. A third of my day is spent on average doing legal advisory. Now that could be legal advisory for brand new products that are being developed. And one of the themes that you're going to see in the CIPPUS exam is a term called privacy by design, which essentially is looking at data protection and the obligations that our organizations have as it pertains to privacy at the beginning of thinking about creation of a new product. And you'll see that in the CIPPUS exam. You'll also see that term referenced in the CIPT exam, which both exams are offered by the International Association of Privacy Professionals. And the CIPPUS exam stands for Certified Information Privacy Professional. And then it's got of the US, and then you've also got Certified Information Privacy Technologist. A third of my day is spent giving advice on new products, existing products, or products that are moving in different markets. And by markets, I'm talking about geography. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, I've talked about how I passed the CIPP US exam, right? That focuses on US privacy legislation, US privacy program management, and things like that. And then I've also talked about the CIPPE exam, right? A lot of organizations provide their products and services in different geographies. Sometimes the launch of the product is going to happen first in the United States and is then going to expand to, let's say, for example, Asia Pacific. Maybe the product is going to be sold in Japan. It's then going to be sold in China. It's then going to be sold in Australia. Organizations will generally decide on the product launch. Initially, there'll be an initial decision on the geography, and then it could get expanded, let's say 6 months down the line or a year down the line, depending on what the business goals are, right? And if you're looking at the CIPM exam, I had talked a lot about, and I've just done a number of videos about each different domain, but the privacy manager works hand in hand with the privacy attorneys because with relation to these launches, let's say, for example, the launch is happening first in the United States and is then going to happen in the Asia Pacific region. That would be a difference in terms of market. And so the advice that's provided by a privacy attorney such as myself is then going to be distributed to the privacy manager, who is going to create policy documentation for the specific business unit that the product affects. So I hope that is clear enough. But the reason I went down that rabbit hole to explain that is because each privacy certification, in my opinion, plays a pivotal role in the type of work that I do as a privacy attorney, whether it's from that initial data collection stage, which we talked about the creation of those products. Third of my day is spent giving advice. Oh, can we launch this product based on the personal data it's going to collect in X geography? Can we launch it in Y geography? Can we expand the product's offering in this geography? Can we add these additional personal data identifiers? Each of those needs to be assessed based on the statute. What does the statute say in the United States? I will give legal advice on it. And what are the obligations the business now needs to meet? That's a third of my day. Another third of my day is spent on contract negotiation. If you are brand new to the privacy space, there is a specific type of template or exhibit that is generally added by privacy councils called a data processing agreement. Now, in some geographies, this document is a requirement under statute. In other geographies, it's not necessarily required under statute, but is definitely recommended and is referenced, not explicitly using those specific words, but an agreement between a, for example, supplier and a company is going to be required to address the data processing obligations or the data processing responsibilities for each party. So a third of my day is spent negotiating these types of contracts. In addition to this, I draft the document too. And why is that important to know? It's important to know because those data processing agreements evolve. Now, the evolution of the data processing agreement is based on what statute requires. The statute that existed for data privacy legislation in 2018 is not the same statute legislation that exists in 2026. We've seen multiple states in the United States now issue their own privacy legislation. Just last week, Louisiana had started discussing its own privacy law. So the obligations that an organization is going to have for processing Louisiana residents' personal data needs to be taken into consideration with the new data processing agreement, or look at any changes that are going to affect certain customers in certain geographies. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, let's go back to the CIPPUS exam. The CIPPUS exam, one of the themes that you're going to encounter during your studies is the influence of the government on accessing data. Now, this is also going to influence that data processing agreement because in the United States, there's specific restrictions on where data could be transferred to. We've seen executive orders. There's lots of different influences on what a data processing agreement might look like for a US organization that does business exclusively in the United States, as opposed to an organization that is US based but does business in other geographies. So the data processing template, the data processing agreement is going to look different geography to geography. And this is where understanding the foundational concepts based on geography is going to be valuable, which is why I talked about privacy stacking at the beginning of the year. Now, the third part of my day is related to these assessments. There's certain privacy legislation. You'll see privacy legislation in the CIPPE exam, known as the GDPR. It requires certain assessments like a data protection impact assessment in instances where there is a high risk to the rights and freedoms of individuals. That is a mandatory statute-based assessment that needs to be completed under certain criteria. Now, your understanding of that as a privacy attorney could vary in other geographies depending on what those geographies require. But I would say a third of my day is also spent doing these assessments that are required under statute. Now, the statute in which an organization has obligations under is going to be determined based on the scope and whether they meet the scope under certain geographies. For example, if the product is being sold in China, China has its own data protection legislation. It has to be considered and the appropriate assessments have to be conducted based on what China's privacy legislation says. Same within Europe. And this is why I think it's valuable if you are planning to operate as a privacy attorney within the program. And I'm hoping in the future to do a whole video about what the program looks like, because I also think that that would be valuable in helping people that are considering taking privacy certifications to identify which ones they should take and in which order, depending on their interest within the entire privacy program. Now, the other thing that I wanted to add for this particular video is my work generally doesn't require me to focus exclusively on data breaches. That is something that happens on an ad hoc basis. It's not something that I do on a day-to-day, but I do know that there are attorneys that only deal with breach. So you can see certain breaches that happened in the past, like an Equifax breach. That is something that a privacy attorney is probably going to spend several months investigating. I don't know that for sure. That was just an example, but there are attorneys that focus exclusively on breach. That is not something that I currently do. But the takeaway from this video and why I decided to record it is because I think it gives insight into what it is that you might be working towards if you are transitioning into the privacy space and you're a lawyer but you're not a privacy lawyer and you wanted to get insight into why credentialing is important and what your day-to-day might look like depending on whether you're in-house, you're outside counsel, or you are at a law firm. And then also understanding how getting a credential or a privacy certification is going to support the work that you do. I believe in my experience that my privacy certifications do support my career and they make me a better privacy attorney and privacy professional. And I think the whole point of privacy professional training is not just to look at the certifications and things like that, but also tie it back to what is the main aim here, right? Main aim of taking the certifications and bettering our understanding in the privacy space is so that we're better practitioners, whether it is that you operate in the same lane as I do, which is as a privacy attorney, or in a different capacity. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or you are an attorney and you are looking to become a privacy attorney or looking to get that first privacy certification, I would be more than happy to give you some of my in-depth knowledge in this space. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in another one.